Friends, Romans, IB Nation, welcome to another edition of Upon Further Review, Chapter 1, Week 0 of hopefully 15 Upon Further Reviews that we're going to do this year, Brian. And
15?
Is it 15? 14. It's 14.
14, yeah. It's like
14. I forgot. I put Notre Dame in a conference. My bad.
Are we doing one during the bye week?
No. So anyway, it's IB After Dark. It's Upon Further Review. It's 8 o'clock on a Sunday. Mark your calendars, folks, because every Sunday we do our deep dive into the film. And I spent my Sunday doing three things: cutting the grass, eating ice cream with you, and watching film. So
now, for those that don't, the whole weird, like, why is Brian and Vince eating ice cream together? We live in the same neighborhood, and there was an ice cream social in the park that's right across from my house. So Angela and I walked over and met with Vince and his wife and their chitlins and had some free ice cream. So Vince and I just don't hang out randomly on a Sunday afternoon eating ice cream.
I mean,
strategizing about today's Upon Further Review. But yeah, and just so you all know, we'll obviously do a dive and Upon Further Review dive here, but we're going to have a lot of breakdown stuff this year that's going to be a lot different on the message board at Irish Breakdown. It's going to be for premium members only, stuff we won't really dive into on the shows, and stuff I won't be turning into free front page articles. It is for IB members only. And I mean, it broke down the numbers for every route, the numbers for every receiver, the numbers, drop back numbers, left, right, middle, deep, intermediate, short, behind the line, all of it. Got a little Sam Hartman pass graphic on there.
Yep.
Also going to do some breakdowns of the run game and defense as well. There's going to be a film room coming out later this week. I'm going to break down why they were so good beating the blitz on film, message board only. So for you premium members, you're going to get a chance to do that. So just another reason, man, why you got to be signed up, right?
I'm telling you.
Still a lot to discuss in the show, Vince.
Yeah,
still a lot to discuss in the show.
And one of the things that we talked about all week, whether it was on the afternoon show or IB Nation Sports Talk, was the fact that last year and previous years, how does Navy get pressure on Notre Dame defensively, on Notre Dame's offense? It's to blitz. It's to bring more than either Notre Dame can handle, or bringing them from different places and confusing Notre Dame, or whatever the case may be. And Notre Dame did a fantastic job this year, of blitz beaters. And so that's what we're going to talk about first, I believe, Brian. We're going to talk about blitz beaters, how that went. My favorite stat from the message board: 5 for 5. Sam Hartman, 5 for 5.
Yeah.
84 yards, 2 touchdowns on being pressured.
Now, pressured in this breakdown meant he was actually physically being pressured. Right. It was not that they brought a pressure that the line picked up. That's when he was blitzed. I don't really do that because I don't think that gives you a great idea of, he got blitzed. We didn't get pressured. There was nobody that got there. This is when he was pressured. I also don't count pressures. For me, screens do not count as being pressured. When you're purposely letting guys get through, I don't count that as a pressure as well. So these are more drop backs, play actions, quick game, where there is somebody in his face or hitting him. Basically, if you get into my throwing zone and I can't step in and throw the football, or if I can step and throw the football, but you're about to hit me, to me, that's being pressured. 5 for 5 for 84 yards was a really impressive number. There's a lot of impressive numbers in the pass game, Vince.
There really were. That's the one that jumped out to me. I haven't had a chance to really dive in and study it like you have, but that's the first one that jumped out to me. I mean, that's an experienced quarterback right there.
Yeah.
So that was a good one. But let's talk blitz beaters. I thought Notre Dame did a very, very good job in the blitz beating category. I mean, a lot of basic stuff too, to be honest with you. But stuff that they haven't done very well in the past. You know, as a coach, you preach to your players, hey, if a guy's blitzing, you hit the guy, you replace the blitzer, essentially. And they did that. I mean, it was very simple stuff, but it was very effective stuff.
So, Vince, we talked about how good they were beating the blitz last night, and some of the things we discussed, right? So we talked about the inside zone on the early 3rd down and 10. Where Navy walks up, it's 3rd and 10. And what Navy would do a lot last year, if you guys remember, is they would blitz off the edge and they would kind of leave that deeper in cut going. So that's why Notre Dame converted 2 3rd and 10s two 3rd and longs last year throwing the ball down the field. So what Navy actually did in this game is they showed that heavy pressure, but then they dropped for width to try to get up underneath those in-breaking routes. So what Notre Dame did was, first time they got there, again, talking about knowing yourself, knowing your tendencies, knowing what you think they're going to be prepared for. So they just ran that inside zone right at them. And they weren't technically quite in two-down territory yet. They would have needed to get good yardage on that first run. And then you come back 2 plays later, Navy adjusts. 3 plays later, Navy adjusts. They line up to show that edge fire again, but this time they walk their backers up inside to eat up all the inside run lanes. So Notre Dame lines up with a I believe it was trips to the right, or was it a 2x2? I'm trying to remember the actual formation. Let me go find that play again, Vince. But they line up in I believe a 2x2, and they put Audric Estime to the left, the opposite side of where they're going to send him. So then when Sam Hartman takes it, they sneak him up underneath and run sort of like a slide route, but more like an under route. He gets right behind that blitzer, and Sam Hartman just ducks over and throws it. Again, so we're going to go inside you this time. We're going to go outside you the next time. I thought their screen game was really on point. Again, we're not going to talk much about the specifics of those breakdowns, but one of the things that I did want to point out from a statistical standpoint, Vince, is you see the screen numbers. We've complained for years about Notre Dame not being a great screen team and not getting to it a whole lot. When you break down Sam Hartman's production yesterday, he had 6 completions behind the line of scrimmage for 68 yards. Would have even been better if they didn't have a -5 on that one flip screen.
Sure.
But 6 screen completions yesterday, Vince, and they had a touchdown. They averaged 9.7 yards per attempt on screens and 11.3 yards per catch, which includes the -5 and on that one particular play and a 0. So they had 2 screens to Jabron Payne. They went for 0 and -5. So their other 4 screens went for over 70 yards. And when you can have success on that, it not only stops that blitz, but if you notice in the second half, Navy wasn't blitzing as heavily as they were the first half early on. And then the Notre Dame just ran it right at them. And then Navy had to go back to the run pressures, and that's when Notre Dame went back outside again. It was a chess match, man. And to see a coach do that in his first game, that was impressive. It was really impressive. And then some other things they did, Vince, that weren't necessarily blitz beaters, but the way that they were calling schemes and the way the players executed, they turned out to be blitz beaters. So, I'm doing like a breakdown of all the Notre Dame's pass plays yesterday. So, like you'll see here, I got like all their concepts that they ran. I've broke them all down, drew them all up, and there was a lot of the stuff where it was quick outs, Y options, crossers, ins. There's stuff that if they're going to bring a pressure, it's not necessarily hot routes, but it's stuff built into the pass concept that you go to. And one example was, for example, they ran a blitz. They ran a front side blitz against Matt Salerno. Actually, I think I have that. I don't have the play broken down like with the writing and all that, but this is actually, you guys can see it here. I'm going to pull it up here real quick and just share the screen. I don't have like the the drawing and all that kind of stuff on it, but you guys will be able to see it here real quick. But this was the particular alignment, Vince. So like what happened was they brought this guy on a blitz, and I believe this guy also blitzed right here. And so what they did was this guy who was over the A gap strong flies out down here, right? So you can see it kind of, he goes down this direction. So what Matt Salerno does is he is running a snag route. So that basically means he's going to run in towards the linebacker and the flat defender. And normally Salerno, if you guys can see that, normally Salerno's working his route off this guy.
Right.
And then Jadarian Price is going to run like a kind of like a wide wheel, slide wheel that direction. They're basically like a slide. And if the flat defender comes down, then he turns it into a wheel. That's how they'll run. That's how you do 1-by-1 snag. If there's a running snag out of a tight end, then the tight end runs like a clear corner. We saw that yesterday as well. So they run the snag concept, and Salerno basically just is going to run like he's going to run like right here off this guy right here. But what happened was this guy, I believe he either blitzed or he dropped deep into coverage. So then this guy, this backer here, flies out weak, and Salerno sees it, and he works inside of that guy against the pressure, and Sam Hartman sees him right away and hits him. And so he actually hit that route, Vince, inside of this guy. Yep. You don't run snag and get up inside of that guy. but they were so prepared for the different things that Navy was going to do that Salerno just saw it, reacted to it, and got inside of that far inside, that near side or that far side inside backer, got open 9-yard gain on 1st and 10. 1st and 10 turns into 2nd and 1. Just
Well,
like, I mean, it was
and,
outstanding.
and for all
But
the people that want to
it's a
give
way to attack the blitz. It's another way to
no,
attack the blitz
absolutely,
with a
and
base call.
right, and for all the people that want to give Matt Salerno a hard time, that was a veteran move by him. That's a veteran play because he's realizing, okay, well, the guy I normally run this off of is disappeared. He's not there anymore, and so he ran it differently. And you've got veteran wide receiver, you've got veteran quarterback, and they make a connection. Like, I hate to tell people this, you're going to see that once, twice, a couple times a game where Matt Salerno is going to come in huge, on those kinds of plays because he's a veteran. He's going to find the open man. I'm not saying Matt Salerno is the number one receiver. That's not obviously what I'm saying. But what I am saying is he's still an important piece to this offense because Sam Hartman's going to find him. And Matt Salerno is going to find a way to get open.
Yeah. The thing for me, Vince, is the ability to attack the blitz went beyond just what we thought it did, right? Like we thought it entailed, the runs and the formations and the screens and things like that. And they did a couple max pro shots. The pass to Tobias was a 9-man or an 8-man protection. They had the back and then both tight ends. So it was actually like in a trips bunch look. They had both tight ends, and that's how they were running duo out of that look. And so they ran duo, and Tobias ran a stutter go. Salerno ran a stutter over, like a sail route. And then the two tight ends blocked, and they ran a play action, and they slid away from the tight ends. So they can handle pressure off the front side with the tight ends, and then they slid away from it so they could handle any wide pressure coming off away from it. That was another way to beat the blitz, and you're taking a shot. And if you go back and watch that play, for those debating about what should have happened, there are two things about that play. When you go back and watch it, number one is I had a buddy of mine say Tobias should have made a better play for the ball, and I understand that sentiment. But my thing is you got to understand where he was on the field. If he goes up for that ball, he gets ridden right out of bounds. There's no way he can stay in bounds. Now, what I would say is if Tobias would have made a bet, what I would tell him as young receivers, if that ball is underthrown like that, make a better play because then you're going to induce the PI a little bit more.
Sure.
But I think he kind of thought he was already getting interfered with, which is
agreed.
the way you play. It should have been that they should not have picked up that flag.
No.
And then it hits the DB on the back. And if you watch the game again, you'll see Sam Hartman look disgusted after that play. And he just goes like this. He went like this. He knew exactly. I should have put it on more of a line. I should have put more on it. That's exactly what he was doing.
Because
he had a double hitch. Out of the play action, he had a double hitch, which was his first mistake. And then he tried to aim it to the back of the end zone. And Tobias is too far down the field for that type of throw Sam made. He needed to put that sucker a little, not on a line because there was a safety there, but just with some velocity. But that's another blitz beater. I was just impressed, Vince, with how much of what they did had natural stuff that if they blitz us, we have stuff built in. I was also surprised as you break the film down, they had a lot of empty releases. Like they had a lot. I mean, not check downs, right? We saw check downs where guys were stepping out and some of those type of things, but we saw a lot of actual empty. Like they would line up even out of 12 personnel where they would have a free release by the back, meaning he has no blitz response, no blocking responsibilities. He just it doesn't matter if they bring 9 guys, he is running a route. They did a lot of that in the game. That play that I showed to Salerno, that was, I'll pull it up again real quick, but this is an example when I talk about an empty look. So in a normal pass play, the running back here will step up and read. We saw a couple mistakes being made in the game, Vince. Jeremiah Love had a couple mistakes, I thought. And I thought Audric had a miss in pass pro too. I thought he didn't see an inside pressure. He should have stepped to. He should have got out of his flash fake and just stepped up and taken a block. At least that's what I thought. I could be mistaken, but normally you'll have the back here, and what Notre Dame does a lot is they'll just have this guy step up and he'll read like inside out, or he might read both inside guys depending on what the protection is. And then if nobody comes, then he releases into a route. They'll do swings, they'll do vertical outs, and then they'll do like just little curls, little unders. They'll do all type of check releases. But what they were doing yesterday was just flat out sending the backs out. So on this particular play, you had Jadarian over here. He just released down this way. Let me get if I get my remote or my mouse over there. He's here. So you see it here. He just releases this way.
Yeah.
So just
Down.
goes that way. And basically what he's doing is he kept his face, he kept his shoulders square. So basically if Hartman sees him now, he's going to throw it to him upfield. And then if the guy comes downhill, then he just turns it into a wheel, which I talked about earlier. They did a lot of that stuff in this game, a lot of empty. And to me, that shows you some, number one, it tells me you have a lot of faith in your quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they would have done a lot of like they did some empty release last year, and it hurt them because Drew didn't always react appropriately to it. And again, you're talking about a redshirt sophomore who didn't have a whole lot of starts under his belt, right? Where Sam Hartman is a 6th-year senior, he's seen all this. And it just it made sense why you did it that way, because you've got a more veteran guy, but you have to have a quarterback that knows where to go with the football if they bring more than you can block, if you're going to do free releases.
We talked about that a little bit on last night's show, Brian, is that sometimes the quarterback has to be responsible for the extra man. Now, in the past, they've left a running back in there to be responsible for the extra man. Now that you've got a guy like Sam Hartman with his brain and with his experience, he can be responsible for that extra man by getting rid of the football, by sidestepping, by doing some different things. And so they're trusting Sam to do that. Now, something that's very interesting, Brian, that it kind of comes full circle for me after watching all the practices and stuff that we did. They threw a lot of balls to running backs in practice, right? And we kind of downplayed it a little bit because we're not here to give the playbook away. I mean, that's not our responsibility. But they threw a lot of balls to the running backs. And now we know why. Because they trusted Sam Hartman. Once spring practice was done, I think they pretty much knew, what they had with Sam Hartman. And so they knew, hey, these guys have the talent to catch the football. Let's get them out. Give us another option because we can trust Sam Hartman to be in the backfield and to account for that extra guy.
Yeah. So blitz beaters, Vince, was obviously a part of what we did. Had a chance to break down the run game as well. And most of the stuff we saw that we talked about last night was confirmed. And so just so you all know, this isn't going to be a super, super long upon further review, because as Vince and I talked, I felt like we kind of got to a lot last night. We kind of nailed a lot. And there weren't a lot of things was like, oh, I didn't see that. And I didn't notice that, beyond a few things that we'll discuss. So we are actually going to do a mailbag this week for upon further review. We don't normally do that, but we will have a mailbag. So obviously super chats we'll get to, but if you have other questions or follow-ups or things you're not sure of, go ahead and ask those as well. You can get those in there now. But one of the things, Vince, that run game wise, we had a lot confirmed. A few things confirmed we talked about last night. I felt like inside zone was used more than duo. That was confirmed. Now, I'll be honest, there were 2 or 3 runs that I wasn't quite sure what it was, because of they did a lot of different footwork with the inside zone duo. They would not just hit, like, remember last year duo was kind of like they would line up play side, step, and then just get downhill. To this year, it looked like they were doing that, but they were also coming from backside and hitting duo with a little bit of a different angle. Same with inside zone. And so it was about 2 or 3 times I was like, I'm not really sure what that was, but I at the end kind of thought, okay, I think that's duo based on the blocking scheme and the alignment and where the tight end is and things along those lines. But I had them down for 17 inside zone runs. Now, these numbers are just for when the first team was in. I didn't count the last series. But 17 inside zone runs, 6 duo runs, and 3 of the heavy counters. Now, we call it heavy. I'm calling it heavy counter because it wasn't your typical, backside kick, backside wrap. They had 1 kick and 2 wraps on that particular play. So they brought a guard and then a tight end and a receiver around on that. So I call it heavy counter. It was a little bit different. I'll be honest, Vince, I liked that for this game. I don't want to see that be like an every week type of thing. I mean, Navy blew it up the 3rd time they saw it.
Right. I was going to have you explain it, but explain why you don't like it against other teams.
Well,
because
once you get film on it, you're going to see that action and you're going to crash it hard. Now, what I would say is if I'm Notre Dame, I would probably run it against Tennessee State again and then set it up against NC State I'm going to have a screen or 2 coming out of that, a bootleg or two
Right.
coming out of that. But it's not something that like in week 9, I want to still see them running all the time. It just, there's only so many formations you can run that out of. And so there becomes some tells. And to me, what I love about the first game is there's really no tells for things that you're doing that are kind of new or that you haven't done before. They don't know what it is. They don't know what you're now going to see it, because you have to have a receiver. You have to have 2 tight ends and a receiver backside, just the way that they block it. You can't get enough bodies to protect the backside and front side if you don't do it that way. And so when you talk about that kind of run, that action is going to get picked up pretty quickly. Now you're good to run it for a couple games and then run a couple actions off of it. But there's only so many actions you can do out of it too. And then you say, okay, let that set you up for maybe some other different wrinkles that you're going to do. But I think this was kind of a Navy heavy thing. And the reason I think if I had to guess, I say this was a Navy run because of the way that Navy likes to bring extra bodies to the field side.
Yeah.
So if you look at those runs, Vince, I believe, let me pull up the play-by-play here, but I believe both of those runs were they lined up in the boundary, I believe, on both of those runs. I'm gonna have to pull it up here real quick, but so when you watch those different runs, actually I got to switch to the other account here. My play-by-play is in the other account. So the first run, so let's go to the Navy breakdown. So that was they ran tray left bunch, counter heavy. So yeah, the hash was on the left side, and they were on the left hash, and they put the 3 receiver side, the bunch side, into the boundary. And so they ran actually the counter heavy to the field. And so Navy's a heavy edge pressure from that side. So what I think you see is that extra wrapper to help protect against that extra body that they may bring. So that's what makes me think this is a Navy specific type of run.
Sure.
Because they are such a heavy field pressure team, that I think what Notre Dame was doing is, hey, if we catch them in a field blitz off the edge, we've got a guy to get to that. They can't blow it up from the field. And if we can crease that sucker inside, if we can catch them and get inside of that, we're going to go. And I think that's why that particular run made sense. So you get that extra helmet play side to where if they bring that pressure, you've got a body to get to it. That's why I think this might have been a little bit more of a Navy specific run than so much a new play that they're going to run all the time. That would be my guess.
That's good coaching, because sometimes you can, when you have plays specifically for an opponent. And I'm not advocating changing your offense for an opponent. Like, that's obviously not what I'm saying. But there are wrinkles and certain things that you can do that's only going to be for that.
And that's what this is. This is a wrinkle off your counter. This is not a new play. This is a wrinkle 100%. Off of counter.
Right.
And I'm actually watching the play again. So yeah, they shifted to the field, or to the boundary look, and they ran it again, and it was normal block. It was just normal counter. Now, actually, I think Pat Coogan should have actually worked out. I thought that Blake blocked down. I thought Coogan should have worked outside of him and not wrapped up. I didn't think he read that well.
I agree.
Yeah. And if he kicks out that guy, because that guy kind of got a little slowed up Audric just a little bit.
He did
on that particular play.
He got the first hit on him, didn't he?
Right.
If I'm remembering the play right, because he kind of
got a little bit of he just kind of slowed him down a little bit.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but if they could have got him, and then all of a sudden, and so what that happened on that particular run is Coogan kind of clogged the lane up a little bit, and Audric couldn't get a clean vertical insertion into the hole on that one. If he could have got a little bit more of a clean insertion, and then Holden runs into Coogan. If Coogan goes to the corner, and then Holden just wraps up right behind him, he takes on the safety that came down and ended up making the first hit on Audric. So if they get that sucker blocked up, Audric has one guy to outrun to the outside, and they might go. Yeah. So I really think it was a Navy specific play, is what I think. That's what I think. So that's what we saw from the run game there with that particular play. Inside zone duo, very balanced. They averaged 6.9 yards per carry on inside zone. They averaged 8.2 yards per carry on duo. And I think that mix makes both of them. We talked about this all year last year, Vince. If you're going to run duo, I think you've got to run inside zone because they balance each other. Because here's why. Inside zone is essentially a run that if you're in one tight end, you're almost always going to run to the open side. The only time you're running it so if you have a tight end to the right, you're going to run it to the left because the tight end can protect the backside. Now, what Notre Dame did a lot in this game is they would actually get their tight end in motion, and then he would start from play side. And then basically they ran a lot of split zone yesterday where he would then go backside and block it. The only way you can run it to the tight end side is if you're running a full read zone. So you've got the quarterback now accounting for that. Notre Dame's not going to be doing that. And so to me, duo is a you have to run duo to the tight end has to be to the side of duo in some way, shape, form, or fashion because you need that extra hat to that side. And sometimes Notre Dame would go they would have a tight end right there and then bring another tight end around because duo is kind of more of a down vertical block where inside zone is a step to the call type of thing. I think they're great balances to each other. And I've heard some O-line coaches talk about how you run duo or inside zone. I think that's nonsense. I think you run them together. And I thought Notre Dame did a really nice job of running them together to the point yesterday at times I'm like, especially watching it live, I wasn't quite sure what they were running. Was it inside zone or duo? It looked similar. And I think it increased the effectiveness of both. I mean, we talked about this. I keep seeing people in the chat, oh, Navy sucks. Navy sucks. Look, when you say that, you diminish just how good the offensive line and run game was yesterday, Vince. Yeah. Navy does suck as a team. Let's be real about that. They went 4-8 last year. Well, I wouldn't say they suck. They're not very good. Now, they had 5 of their 8 losses were by a touchdown or less, but it's not like they were losing that by a touchdown or less to Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State. They were losing to AAC teams, Delaware, teams like that. They're not very good. But the one thing about Navy that is legitimately very good is their run defense last year. And this year, Vince, they returned everybody but John Marshall, who was 6'2", 205 pounds, from the team that finished number 3 in the country last year in rush defense.
He's an outside guy too, wasn't he?
Correct.
He was in the box, but he was on the outside. Yeah.
I mean, they held Memphis to 91 yards. They held Tulsa to 25. They held Temple to 20, Cincinnati to 55, Notre Dame last year to 66, UCF to 84, and they held Army to 124.5 yards. East Carolina to 103, SMU to 105. So when you looked at it, this was not a team that was bad at rushing the football or stopping the run. They are good at stopping the run. And I think Notre Dame's ability, I mean, think about this, Vince. They went 8.2 yards per play on counter on duo, 6.9 yards per play on inside zone, 6.7 yards per play on counter. And did you notice what they scored on? They did not score on either of those plays. They ran power O from the 1 yard line. Did you see that? Mm-hmm. So they put Tosh Baker in backside, and Tosh basically secured the backside. Yep. And then they wrapped the guard around and had the fullback kind of kick out, and they just went right up inside of it. And they ran power O basically at the 1 yard line.
I'm a geek
and scored a touchdown.
Like, when I saw that formation, when I saw them come out in that formation with the extra tackle, and they had Shearwood on one side and they had Holden Stays on the other, just like almost as wing backs, essentially. It's like, okay, pretty sure they're just going to power this sucker into the end zone. And they did. I mean, they got such good push on that. I mean, Navy didn't have a chance, obviously, on that particular play. That was just beautiful football to me. So I'm glad that they have that wrinkle, that they have some different things that they're doing. The run game is it's exotic to a degree, but it's also their identity. You know what I mean? Like they mixed it up enough that it's going to keep the defense guessing, which that's what you want. And it's very clear what they want their identity to be, which I really enjoy at this point.
They want to be a physical football team.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Well, thing that I like too, Vince, when I break the game down, and I'm going to go try to get to this here and give another example, but there was a couple. So like the heavy counter play, like that was a very much they ran that out of one look. Another reason why I think that was a Navy specific play.
Right.
But when you look at a lot of their other run game stuff, and I'm going to this here real quick. They mixed up the looks. They mixed up the personnel out of this.
Yeah.
So as I'm breaking it down now here, let me get down to it here. So if you look at like inside zone, for example, they've got it out of 11, 12, 12, 12, 12, 11, 12, 11, 11, 11, 12, 11, 12, 12, 12, 11, 11 personnel wise. Like they really did a good job of mixing it up, the formations they ran it out of. And I thought that was something that I was happy. I didn't think that was something that I was happy to see, is to see that as well. Because you can't just line up and say, okay, every time we're in 12, we're doing this. Every time we're in 11, we're doing this. I thought they did a nice job of mixing it up and keeping Navy off balance. So those were a couple other things that we saw yesterday from the Notre Dame offense that I was impressed by. And going and watching the receivers was an interesting endeavor as well, Vince. I thought the receivers, we all know they played well. I think they probably played a little bit better than I thought, because obviously we know about the drop that Tobias had and then the miss. But I pointed out a couple plays to you when we were kind of going through the film together. The deep out cut to Deion Colsey, his second catch. Tobias murders that safety.
Oh,
and
I mean, he's like,
yeah,
and then it's just,
then just stopped when he saw the ball go outside. You know, I mean, so there were some plays like that. There was another play. I think it was Rico Flores was open on a route, you know, where the ball didn't come to him. Now, in these instances, the ball wasn't coming to him because the read didn't tell him there. So on the play to Sam, or the play to Deion, that he could have gone to Tobias, the pressure they were bringing and the coverage they were showing, he's not going to get to Tobias on that play.
Correct.
They would have had to show a different look for him to get to Tobias, because they're playing off coverage and they're bringing an edge pressure. That's pull and throw it to Deion. That's the read. So it wasn't like in the past where guys were getting open and the quarterback wasn't finding the right guy. Right. It was the first stuff was there almost the entire night. I mean, there was a couple times they had to go to a second read. I think the pass interference to Tyree was the secondary read. That was basically an all verts look with the backside out cut, because they did it out of trio, just three receivers on one side, tight end attached to the other. I call that trio. Trips to me is 3-by-1 with an outside widen guy. But, you know, I thought that was a good concept. I would have been interested to see maybe the backside throw on that one. And, you know, but there was a couple times I thought the receivers telegraphed their routes a little bit when they weren't the number one target. There's a couple times we saw that. I want to see them not do that, because to me, when you got a 6-year senior quarterback, you may think you're the third target, but he may think, I like this look and I want to come to you.
Yep.
That's something that I want to see a little bit more as well. But I thought another thing that I thought the receivers blocked pretty well in this game. That's the one thing that Tobias did really well.
Yeah.
He blocked him, and Jaden had one big miss in the run game. Guy just ran by him, wasn't anywhere near the play. But other than that, I thought Jaden and Tobias especially blocked really well in this game. And Rico battles his butt off in the run game.
Right.
Like Rico almost got into a fight with one dude. They were going at it so hard. I was like, I like this kid. I like how this kid competes. They really competed in the run game, and they ran a decent amount of RPOs. They only threw, Vince, hey guys, sorry about that. Didn't realize that I was muted that entire time. So one thing that I noticed in the game too is that Notre Dame's RPO game, they ran a lot of RPOs, but they didn't throw a lot of RPOs, which I thought was interesting. I thought Navy would do more to take them out of that. They threw the bubble screen to Tobias early in the game, was an RPO. They ran an inside zone off that, and they hit the quick out to Deion on the first drive. It was the 2 plays before the touchdown. They ran an inside zone. Sam Hartman saw it and pulled it. So and you actually look at it, the offensive line was blocking on that play. He made some sort of motion to Jabron Payne to let Jabron know that he was pulling and throwing it. That was actually a pre-snap read. He actually saw that beforehand. So he actually flipped. He actually moved, got Jabron Payne in position to maybe to pick up an edge. I wasn't quite sure what he was doing, but that was one where that was an RPO throw. And here's something that was interesting. Talk about good coaching. On that play, they were running an RPO. Zeke Correll starts working to the second level, and he looks outside and sees that it was a later throw to Jaden Thomas that they completed an RPO. And he's actually looking outside, and he sees that Jaden Thomas is about to catch a ball, and he stops and doesn't take another step. And so you can tell that they've worked on getting into these situations where, hey, if you see the ball going out, don't keep working down the field. Stay where you are. And, and so the recognition on that I thought was really good. I thought that was really good. And being able to get that out. But as I look through it, those were RPOs. They hit an RPO to Jaden Thomas. I only have them down for, 1, 2, 3 RPO completions out of 24 attempts. That's what I had them down as. Now, some of the screen stuff, they will do some of that screen stuff out of RPOs. But if you watch this game, those were not RPO screens. They were actually designed screens. So they were running like bubble screen to one side with the back and then tunnel screen to the other side. And I thought another aspect of the game that I thought was good before we move on to the defense, I thought the offensive line blocking in the screen game was as good as we've seen in a while. I thought it was very good. We saw Zeke Correll getting downfield for downfield blocks in the screen game. Blake was getting outside quickly. Rocco Spindler got downfield on a couple. I thought the downfield blocking from their offensive line was much better because I'm not really watching that live. Going back and watching it later, that was impressive to see. I was happy to see that. So, Vince, are you ready to get back with us? You all right, man? We had double trouble because you took off and I was muted. Apparently, and there was like all the people at home are going like this, but I can't see any of them.
Well, I'll be honest. I got out of nowhere, 2 massive cramps in my quads. And I was like, I'm dying right now.
Man, I thought you were going upstairs to like lay down some fire and brimstone on the children.
I don't know what's wrong with me. Oh my goodness. I felt like I got sniped is what it felt like. So I was like, I need to stretch a little bit down here real quick. I can't even take myself out.
You didn't have time to take yourself out of the thing. You just left the whole show.
Anyway, but I was listening to you and great analysis, sir. That's good stuff.
Yeah. But that's something I was impressed by though, was the downfield blocking in the screen game I thought was really good.
No, absolutely. And it's fun to see those big boys get out front. And like, I thought the touchdown by Colsey was, first of all, it's a great block by Tobias, I believe, on the outside to help spring him. But then Rocco had come around and he was trying to block, but he could not catch up to Deion Colsey. He's like, I'm trying, like I'm out here. I'm trying to do my best. And, but he was looking for somebody to block. He just didn't need to, obviously, on that particular play. But, these linemen get out in space. Okay. You know what I mean? Like I was actually pretty impressed by that.
Yep. There was a question that we had here from Josh Phillips that I just want to answer related to what I was just talking about. He says, why do offensive linemen need to stop when throwing out of an RPO to avoid illegal man downfield penalty? Absolutely, Josh. That's exactly right. Now, I was explaining, Vince, while you were away, the play that they hit an RPO out cut to Jaden Thomas, and Zeke Correll was actually working to the second level to block, and he sees the Jaden's like putting his hands out to catch the ball, and he stops running, basically saying, if I'm not too far downfield, I'm not gonna. And if I go block this guy before Jaden catches that ball, then they could ding me. I thought that was a really heads up play and you could tell that's something they've worked on as they kind of continue to look at.
And they understand they understand these things and they understand the concepts and why and how they can affect things negatively and positively. You know what I mean? That's a sign of a well-coached team. I mean, I'm not trying to kiss any butt here, but that's the sign of a well-coached team.
No,
that these guys
especially for week 1.
These things. Yes.
Right. We saw no delay of games. We saw the one time during, I think it was there was a one period where they had to call timeout. We saw no false starts. We saw like one hold. We didn't see a lot of we saw the one fumble. So, I mean, there was some first game like, dude, you can't do that. But I thought overall, Vince, I thought they did a really good job. They played really clean football offensively. And
Yes.
defensively, they played clean from a penalty standpoint, but there are some other areas where the defense is going to have to get a little bit better. And again, it's more Navy related. We'll have to see how it goes against some others. Yeah, that's what we're gonna have to see. Somebody just asked us, Brian, is that hat fitted or flexed? It's fitted.
Oh,
So I got
that
this
is
from the indie bookstore.
That is good looking.
Yeah, and it's a low riding hat. You know me, I love the low riding hats. So
yep.
But yeah, so Vince, let's move on to the defense here.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot else to add, to be honest with you. I think we covered that pretty well. D tackles played really well. Penetration was really good. I had a couple people on the board say I didn't think Howard Cross did much. I thought Howard Cross played really well.
Yeah,
he had 4 tackles, but he was getting a push and penetration all night long. I thought Howard played really well. Yes, I thought Jason Onye a couple times let them get into his legs and push him back, but he also had a lot of really impressive plays. I mean, Rubio played well. Yeah. Mills had that big miss on the where he should have had a tackle for loss. But overall, he played really well. I thought the interior guys played really well. Outside of Betelho, and I thought Josh Burnham played really well. Javante had 2 big plays, and then some other were just kind of, I thought the other ends. I didn't think Junior played that great. I didn't think Nana played very well.
Junior got pushed off the ball a little bit too much for my liking. He made a couple of times where he didn't set the edge real great, but I mean, I know it's a newer position for him, so it may take a little bit of time. But I thought Josh Burnham played exceptionally well,
because that sack wasn't his only really impressive play.
Right. But that sack was awesome, man. I mean, he just came right under. I mean, that was nice. That was nice.
Yep. Linebacker play. I actually thought Jack Kaiser's first half was a little better on the rewatch than I thought it was live.
Okay.
I just, again, there was a couple times just late reacting to things, but I thought as I broke it down, I thought it was better. I thought he was a little better than I thought. He was still very good in the second half, which we talked about, but I thought his first half was a little better than I thought. The big takeaway for me, one of the best adjustments of the second half was turning Xavier Watts loose. Yes. They were using safeties as sort of a last line of defense in the first half, which worked to a degree, but they were letting them get those kind of little quick, those pitches that were kind of getting yards because the safeties were getting downhill late. Second half, I thought they just said, okay, Xavier, go.
Just go.
And,
and he made some plays.
And they used Jack to kind of come up and take on that lead blocker effectively, and then Xavier was able to go clean up. He looked a lot better. They're going to have to figure some things out at safety. I really like DJ Brown as a kid, and I've heard he's a great leader and all that. But Vince, this is the same stuff we've seen over. And I mean, he had remember the penalty he had last year on the pass he intercepted in the end zone because he tackled a guy because he wasn't confident in himself.
Yep.
You can't have a 6-year senior still coming up, not coming to balance, being out of control, missing a tackle in the backfield, falling down on deep ball. You just can't have that, man. And it's just the same stuff over and over again. I thought the safety play to me was disappointing in this game. It was disappointing to me. Outside of Xavier in the second half, it was just we barely saw Ramon Henderson. Thomas Harper, I'll give him a pass because he's never played against a triple option. It's a 5th-year senior's never played a triple option. And he was playing out of position. He was playing like outside. It was just a weird play. And the game was already over. But Notre Dame caught some more breaks in the first half than I thought. There was a couple potential big plays that Navy should have had, especially on the first drive, where if it's not for the pressures getting to them, they might have had some bigger plays. So I still think the defense overall played very well. I thought the game plan was very good. I thought there were some execution mistakes on the back end in the first half that got erased by the front 7, is what I would say. I thought the front 7 played very sound. I thought the game plan was very sound because what they did was all the stuff that Navy stoned at them didn't mean a hill of beans because they just stayed within you've got this, you've got this, you've got this.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of it too, Vince. Very disciplined, very sound plan.
If I'm nitpicking the plan, I talked about this to you before we went on the air. Couple too many blitzes in the first half for my liking because I personally would want to just sit back, play your base, do your assignment, etc. And sometimes when you blitz, it can create a big play for the other team because now you've taken a guy out. But the way they blitz, though, they covered themselves pretty well. They weren't leaving places open. So, I mean, it was okay. So, again, I'm being nitpicky to be honest with you. But when they sat back in their
I think you
base,
can be aggressive with your linebackers and not blitz, to your point.
right, agreed,
Yes.
100%. Because I felt like when they were in their base, I felt like the linebackers were coming downhill fast,
Right.
and I really like that. I mean, again, anybody that thinks JD is slow needs to rewatch this game.
Well, Vince, I will say
Yeah.
this too. I want to get your thoughts on this. I thought they got out of that quickly, though. I don't
Yeah.
think they stayed in it like the whole second half.
Right.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? Like I thought they got out
Exactly.
of it pretty quickly.
Yep,
Yeah.
I agree with that completely. And again, and we said this last night, so this isn't a big, oh, I watched this and I saw this, but I thought Marist played well. I mean, he was reading and reacting and doing what he was supposed to do, and then he was coming downhill, making plays. There was one or two where it felt like he just filled on the inside and just kind of got lost in the wash a little bit. But overall, I thought his play was really good. It was the best game that I've seen him play in a while.
Yeah.
And so that was really, really good to see.
Can I be honest, Vince?
Yeah.
I was kind of half expecting to no, lie to us all.
No,
I was half expecting to watch the film and just find a bunch of stuff wrong with Maris's game.
Sure.
I just, but I didn't. I thought he played really well. Thought he played really well. But other than that, Vince, I think we kind of did a pretty good job of kind of hitting it all last night. I thought we got most of it last night.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good. We got a lot of that stuff covered last night. So anything else you want to talk about from the game? Obviously, I thought the PAT field goals it's gotta be crisp. You gotta get there. You gotta get there.
Got to. And it's everything. It's snap, hold, kick. But the kick was just off. It was to the right. He didn't his angle was bad and he didn't make the kick. I mean, you gotta make a 41-yarder. That you're a big boy college football.
It's almost like he was taking it for granted.
Yeah, exactly. Because they did it. They zoomed in on his face, and I didn't realize this at the time. But when I rewatched it, they zoomed in on his face, and he just looked like he was in the backyard playing bags, cornhole or something. Like
which you kind of want to a degree. You kind of want that, but there just still needs to be a focus that needs to be part of that too.
Right.
Yeah. So Vince, that's going to do it for the Upon Further Review. We're going to do a mailbag next, but before we do get to that mailbag, folks, we would appreciate that you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, share this podcast. And look, if you want the breakdown that we did now, we're going to have a film breakdown later. We're going to have some run game breakdowns, all going to be message board only stuff. It is not stuff that's going to be available to anyone else. It's only for message board members. So you're definitely going to want to check that out as well on at boards@irishbreakdown.com.
And I will tell you, I met a few board members over the weekend at the high school football games,
including a surprising one, Vince. We won't say who it was, but I was pretty surprised by that.
It was an awesome meet and greet with him, and I love it when guys come up to me and they're like, Irish Breakdown. So it was awesome. So I love meeting the board members. That was a lot of fun. So hopefully we'll see more people at all the home games. And it's a family, guys. Get on the boards. There's awesome information, and everybody's looking out for each other. So I love that.
Let's get into the mailbag, Vince. We have some questions here. If you all have more questions, please get those to us. We'll get them over. We'll get those answered for you real quick. And if there's things you want to ask about the game, or maybe some disagreements you have and you'd like some clarity, or you'd like to have a discussion about it, throw those in there too, and we'll answer all of them. But Lucky Ducks 512, Vince, is going to start us off here.
Oh, for the super chat. Thank you very, very much, Lucky Ducks. So who surprised you on both sides of the ball?
Oh, Pat Coogan was the big surprise for me offensively. Now I'll say this: there were some mistakes by him that I saw in the game that he needs to clean up. He was my lowest graded offensive lineman, but lowest graded amongst 5 guys that played pretty well. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like if you've got 5 stars, somebody's going to have to be the lowest ranked of the 5 stars, right? I'm being a bit hyperbolic, but
sure.
I thought he played good football for his first start. He's not, and it's not even like he was a backup last year. He barely played. I think he only played like 1 game last year, right?
1 game.
And so you're going to see some of those mistakes. But the one thing I got wrong last night in the breakdown was I said that he was late reacting to a stunt because he got caught. He actually was blocking a guy and then just lost him.
Just let him go.
A defensive lineman. That's what happened on that.
Yes.
So there was about 4 or 5.
They picked up the twist. Like it was a
they picked it up actually well.
Picked it up,
I thought they lost the twist.
And then he kind of let him go. And
he stopped moving his feet. That's what happened. He stopped moving his feet.
And then he ended up tripping him. And
right, because there was a lot of people saying like, "Oh, it was a dirty play by that Navy guy," and it's actually no. Coogan tripped him. He was stumped, and if you see, the guy was trying to pull up as he went low into Hartman's knees. He was actually trying to pull up, like he didn't want to just dive into his legs. He got tripped. But I'd say Coogan didn't play quite as well as I thought he did live, but still played good football for his first start, Vince. Right, like he that's why I didn't spend time during the show actually like nitpicking every little mistake he made.
Sure.
But he played better than I thought coming into the game. He still played a lot better than I thought he was going to play coming in. I thought here's the thing about Pat Coogan. When he moves his feet, he's okay, at least against a team like Navy. I still have some questions about, is he going to be able to move bigger guys? That's still a concern for me.
Sure.
I still don't know the answer to that. Is he going to be able to move bigger guys? We'll find out. But I thought for this game, I thought he played well. Defensively, who surprised me? Jordan Patelho. I mean, I just don't think this – I wouldn't have said to you before the game, this is a Jordan Patelho game. Like, because it requires discipline and block destruction and things that he's not shown to be good at. I was really surprised at how well he played. And Maris was a surprise too, but we talked about him yesterday. I say Jordan Patelho was, to me, the biggest surprise on defense of how well he defended the option from a discipline and technical standpoint.
I will say, offensively, I'll just say I was surprised all 5 running backs got time when the game was still a game. I was hoping that would happen, but it surprised me that they were able to do that. So I appreciate that they went in with a plan and made sure that happened. So that was a good surprise. And then I will say Josh Burnham on defense. I thought he played really, really well for his his first minutes at that position. I thought he played really, really well. I was very impressed with him. He's going to get a lot of minutes this year, I think.
Next question, Vince, is from Michael S.
All right, Michael, thank you very, very much for the super chat. Noah Eagle is no Tirico, but he's 150% better than Collinsworth, whose gravel voice is as pleasant as chalk on the blackboard. Is Noah the new voice, or does NBC nepotism still reign? Continue the good work. He was a fill-in, I believe. Jack was sick. We'll say that.
Vince, Jack Collinsworth's voice doesn't bother me. I mean, I grew up listening to his dad, and his dad's voice doesn't bother me.
It's not
yeah, but his dad's voice doesn't bother me either. I mean, we listened to his dad doing Notre Dame games back in the 90s.
Yeah, right.
It's just that he's just not yet. He's just not good at his job yet.
Correct.
I think he'll eventually get there as long as he, is hungry and has as long as he takes pride in his craft, like everybody who's not good at their job when they first start doing it. Like if we'd have done podcasts when I first started getting to cover this team, it would have not gone well. Just because the attitude that I had, the demeanor I had, it wouldn't have gone well. I'm glad that I didn't. And even this, you get better at it. But it just is one of those things where it's kind of like the frustration that people had with the last offensive coordinator hire before this one. It's like, not that the guy doesn't have ability, but like, is he really the guy now? Is it now his time, or is this more of the other reasons for it? But his voice doesn't bother me. It's just he just isn't good at it yet. Right. I mean, and the frustration of like, man, Paul Burmeister does a great job whenever he's had to fill in. Like, I guess part of it too
veteran,
is
Yeah. I just don't like the fact that Notre Dame is the proving ground for announcers. Like that bothers me that NBC puts their rookies on the Notre Dame game. It's like, can we hold Notre Dame in a little bit higher esteem?
Right.
That would be great.
Right.
That's all.
Would be nice, right?
Yeah.
Would certainly be nice. But as you said, he's just a fill-in at the time.
Yeah. Matt with the super chat, thank you very, very much. He says, long live the King of Ireland. That's funny. That's good.
He's never going to live that down.
No, he's not. That's the one thing he did wrong. John Bertucci with the super chat, thank you very, very much, John. Great work on the pass game breakdown. Go Irish. Referring to the boards, there's an awesome pass breakdown. You enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it, and I know everybody else will enjoy it too if they like jumping into the numbers. And I know you're planning on putting the run game breakdown out there as well.
Yeah,
but you got to be on the boards. You got to be on the
Yeah,
board to
run
check it
game
out.
wise, I'm gonna break it down by run concept, and then like left right within that run concept. Overall left right numbers, and then like what run plays each back ran and the success that they had. So like what did Audric do on inside
Nice.
zone? What did he do on counter? That kind of thing. So yeah, you'll like it. You'll like it. And like I have it like the receiver numbers, like this guy was targeted 4 times on this many completions, and what routes did they throw to, and what the numbers were there. It was a lot of fun putting it all together. But yeah, I sent you saw the sheet, Vince. I sent that to you because Vince was like, hey, can we find out what the numbers are going to be, like left versus right running the ball? And I was like, yeah, we can figure that out.
Yeah, I might have it right here.
Yeah.
It's great.
I haven't done that in a couple years, but I just decided, you know what, man, I'm just going to start putting more stuff onto the message board, and just stuff that's going to be premium people only. So,
yeah,
but thank you for that, John.
Matt with another super chat. He says, I know we didn't have any 40 plus big ones, but if there were further out, Colsey and 24 would have gone to the house.
But my only thought on that, Vince, is we got to be careful saying that possibly. But when you get to like the 25 in, defenses are playing you differently. They're not going to be playing their safeties as deep when you're that close to the goal line. So maybe, but I don't know necessarily if that would have been the case. But yeah, they didn't get any 40 big ones. But as we talked about last night, we need to see more of that big game stuff.
Yeah.
And big gain stuff, excuse me. But we saw a lot of 20s and 25s and 30s, and that's the stuff that I was happy to see last night. Vince, I'm actually going to pull up.
It was very efficient. Like it was. Yeah, they didn't have the big gainers, but that's fine. I didn't really mind it because they were very efficient. They put good drives together.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind it from the standpoint of they didn't need it to beat Navy. I'd still like to see it, but it was one of those things where you saw the foundation of it in that it's going to come.
Sure.
That was kind of my thing, is it's going to come, because you could just see things last night that would lead you to believe like, hey, this is it's going to get there.
Yeah.
They just didn't do it. Right. And so that's still a need, right? That's still something we need to see. But as you said, the efficiency piece was there, and, hit a couple of those plays. And look, I mean, the throw to Tobias would have been another long one. The out cut to Colsey, if he reads that, differently next time and decides to throw it to Tobias, that's wherever he was at was going to be a touchdown. I mean, and that was out further.
Throw to Tyree would have been a touchdown. And it wasn't super far out. The one that went into the end zone where he got pass interfered with. How far?
Maybe. Well, he's got to run that route better. Like, that would have been about I think they were at about the 30-yard line.
Okay.
30, 35-yard line. The thing about Tyree is I was pleased with how he played last night. Like, he looked like a wide receiver.
Yes.
There's going to be stuff where they're just going to start getting him the ball more in space. Mm-hmm. And there was a couple times last night where okay, I want to see that play call. And that's something that I want to see a little bit more from, Coach Parker's going to get even better at, is just a little bit more awareness on certain play calls of who's in the game.
Sure.
But I thought they did a nice job of that for the most part. But you'll see him get even better at it as he does it more. So I want to see a little bit of that. But that's kind of nitpicking a little bit. But that stuff will come. I mean, that stuff will come. Sure. There's no doubt. So that stuff will come. And I don't think Notre Dame was necessarily gearing up to try to hit a bunch of 60s last night either, because you're not necessarily trying to do that when you're playing a team that's brings so much pressure. You're trying to hit those intermediates and maybe catch some runs.
Point.
And so, they just did a lot of that stuff. I thought was part of what they did last night too. But yeah, I want to see more of the home runs, but I have no complaints with what we saw last night. I was pleased with that. So let me look at, see what I want to look up what Notre Dame's overall number was last night. Let me just pull this up here real quick. So we've got that. Let me just get to the Navy game, because I want to pull this up and just see exactly what the results were. So last night in the game, Vince, let's see here. Let me pull this up real fast. So I've got it broken down, but it's a little bit difficult to. I've got to copy and paste it onto another thing because I can't necessarily do it. So last night let's go descending. So last night in the pass game, they had gains of 35, 25, 22, 20, 20. So 5 pass plays of 20 or more yards. And then they had, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 runs of 10 yards or more. So, and then, they had the pass plays that had 5 over 20, had 2 of 19 that were 19. So you had 6 total plays of over 20 yards. That's a good number.
Yeah.
That's a good number. Not a great number, but a good number. And if you look at last year, so let's say, what did I say, Vince? What it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gains of over 20 yards. So 6 times, say 13. That if Notre Dame does that every game, it would have ranked them last year 17th, tied with Alabama and Michigan, but Michigan would have played one more game in plays of 20 yards or more. Just trying to give a little bit of context.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
But the gains of over 30, not as good because they only had 1. And then that would have gotten them to last year, would have gotten them, they'd be down near the bottom. So not a lot of big plays. Those need to come, but you saw a foundation to lead to it. Yeah. And that's what we'll need to see. And at the end of the year, the stuff kind of balances itself out. You didn't get any last week, but you'll probably have like 5 against Tennessee State next week. And it balances it out a little bit, when you look at it from that standpoint.
Connor Patton, my guy, Connor, welcome back. And thank you for the super chat very much. He says he's super excited for the season. Thanks for the great coverage.
Vince, we only get super chats from Connor when you're on the show. Just want to throw that out there to you. So
I love that.
That's your dude.
Yep. Love it. Nathan Milton with the super chat. Thank you very much, Nathan. Coach Marcus Freeman made comments about how good the operation and communications was by the offense. Am I nuts for thinking that's a subtle shot at Tommy Rees?
I don't think you're nuts because I think fans just think about that a lot. I don't think that was in any way what Coach Freeman was talking about. Like this is the thing we have to do as fans, right? So there's nothing Marcus Freeman can say about how well the team played yesterday and praise his coaches in any way without someone taking it as right. And, I thought Jared Parker had a great game plan last night. Oh, does that mean that he didn't think Tommy Rees did? No. Now he may think that. I have no idea, but I know Coach Freeman well enough to know that he's not going to be taking little like subtle side shots at Tommy Rees. They don't have a bad relationship. They didn't have a bad relationship when they were here. And honestly, that's the last, like right now, Marcus Freeman's not thinking about Brian Mason and Tommy Rees and all the people that have left. He's worried about beating Navy and going out next week beat Tennessee State. So do I think you're nuts? No, I don't think you're nuts because we're fans. We look at things differently and we think about that kind of stuff. And so I totally understand why you would think that, Nathan. I'm not coming down on you at all. I'm just saying from what I know of Marcus Freeman and the people that I know that know him really well and the conversations that he and I have had, I'd be shocked if he had all thought at anything about Tommy Rees on that play. And I don't mean that like he doesn't give a crap about Tommy Rees. I'm saying he's just worried about his football team, not taking shots at Tommy.
And it was game 1, and there's a new offensive coordinator, and there's a new quarterback. And so he was simply commenting on it was just really good communication from the top.
Probably
all the way
surprisingly
down to the quarterback. Yeah.
He probably had some built-in expectations for some of those things, maybe not to be as sharp as you would hope in game 1. Probably.
Yeah. Right.
So no, I honestly don't think that was in any way a shot at Coach Rees. I don't. I really don't.
I agree.
But I also can understand why, as a fan, you might take it that way. I do.
Another super chat. This one from Tyler Evans. Thank you very much, Tyler. What was your favorite offensive play and defensive play yesterday?
Oh, that's a good one, Vince. Do you have any off the kind of off the top of your head? I mean, I think the thing for me is my favorite play yesterday was the shot to Great House, and then also the shot to Tobias Merriweather, even though it didn't hit. I just like the fact that they found ways to take shots. I mean, look, The other part of the big play thing yesterday, Vince, is that Notre Dame was up 28-0 when they got the ball in the third quarter. They had only had 4 possessions. It's kind of like, do you really want to take a shot against a heavy blitz team, and then maybe it doesn't go your way and you get blindsided? And so they came out in the second half and just kind of ran at Navy and felt them out a little bit and just kind of reestablished line of scrimmage again. And by that point in time, it's 35-0. But I just kind of felt like there were those shots. There was that shot to Greathouse. It was a play action, all verts. It was all verts by the trip side, Vince. It wasn't all verts by the tight end. They ran a deep out for the tight end to kind of take that backside corner and safety with it. They ran a seam from number 3, ran a backside seam. Tyree ran that front side seam, and then they had a go route that converted to a stop because the corner bailed. So when you're running an all verts and the corners bail, you stop it. You either come back or you stop it. I just would have liked to see Chris Tyree bend that sucker in a little bit versus too high. When you're running too high and you're running trips out of that side and there's a too high safety look, you've got to bend in front of that near side safety because the other guy's taking that other safety with him. You're not going to run into his route because he's going backside. And that'll be something that Chris will learn. I would hope that Coach Stuckey would kind of point that out when they do film today and say, hey, look, hey, you bend this sucker in. Yeah, you're still going to get the PI, but you might actually catch that sucker. And as good as the PI was, you catching it at the 2 or even in the end zone would have been even better.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the learning process for a guy still learning to play receiver. But I like that they took those shots. I mean, those were design shots, Vince.
Sure.
Those were design shots. And that's the thing I liked about them is they were not, they went cover 0. Now we'll take a shot. I mean, they were designed to go take shots. That's what those were about.
Those are the
ones I liked.
This one right here was mine because of the way that Sam Hartman was moving around the pocket with his head up, was able to find Greathouse in the front corner of the end zone. Like just the movement of the quarterback, man. It was like, okay, we got something here. Like that was definitely my favorite offensive play. And it was a broken play, to be honest. And that was my favorite play because of the play that he made out of it. So that's mine for offense. Defensively,
the Marist play for me, Vince, not the forced fumble. That was great. But the play 2 plays later when it just popped in my head because it's actually getting ready to play on the TV. I got it on the other monitor. I've got the game on. But the play he made, and it was 2 plays later, I think I might actually be that play now. But where he was backside and he read the dive and he scraped over top and blew the quarterback up for a short gain and forced a 3rd down that Navy did not convert. That was probably my favorite play because that was an instinctive play. That was a discipline. Like that was read your key. Don't, and then boom, then you exploded the ball. That's the stuff Maris hasn't done. And so to see him do that, I mean, the athletic chase you down play, we always knew Maris was athletic, and that's the kind of play you expect the guy with his his athleticism to make. The play 2 plays later, or maybe it was a play later, Vince, that was more of that shows me that the linebacker feel was there on that play. And then the athleticism took over. Sure. That was probably my favorite play of the game. And the other one that would be in consideration is when Josh Burnham got his sack. That was just kind of like, I was a little fired.
He just ran the quarterback over.
They better play this kid more, man. And what we don't talk about is Gabriel Ruby had the initial pressure.
Yeah.
Gabriel smoked that dude inside and forced him inside, and then Josh cleaned it up. So that was probably my second favorite play.
I really enjoyed watching JD Bertrand I can't remember if it was a sweep or if it was a pitch, but it was an outside play, and he just comes underneath and just hawks that guy down. That was fantastic. And then also, I don't know why, but I just really enjoy watching safeties play the alley. And so in the second half, when Xavier Watts was playing the alley so well, it's like a couple plays in a row. Like he just comes down like a freight train and just takes
that second half adjustment for the safeties was noticeable on the first play of the half.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, there's the zero I know and love. You know what I mean?
Well, and also showed that the game plan had adjusted too. Like
for sure. But that was for me, those are probably my favorite ones on defense.
Yeah. Good question. Got another super chat down here, Vince.
All right, from 410 JP, thank you very, very much. Do you think the refs cheated Cam out of that fumble?
I don't know if I'd say they cheated him, but I think that's taking it into the only reason I'll say no I think they made the wrong call. I don't want to say that they cheated him because that implies that there was an intentional miss of the call, and I have no reason to believe that. I just think they missed it. That's what I think. I think they missed it. So, but no, I'll say this: it was the wrong call. There's no way that guy had full possession of the ball before JD Bertrand ripped it out of his hands. In my opinion, but that's a heck of a play by Cam Hart, though, to force that ball out. He came up and blew that play up, man. He really did.
Anthony Solomon, thank you very much for the super chat. Thanks for the show tonight, gentlemen.
You are welcome.
Michael S., what second string offensive linemen played and how did they do?
I mean, they did okay. They came in and played hard and all that, Vince. They only played it. Tosh played early. Tosh was actually in on the first touchdown of the game.
Yep, he was part of that.
They brought him in,
package, the jumbo package or whatever you want to call it. Yeah,
it was a 6 offensive lineman package is what they did.
Yep.
But Tosh played. I love on the first play of that. Billy Schrouth is pushing a guy like 7-8 yards down the field, so that was nice to see. But you had left to right. You had Tosh at left tackle, Billy Schrouth at left guard. You had Ashton Craig at center. Looks like Andrew Kristofic at right tackle or right guard, and then Emil Wagner at right tackle. They only played like 5 plays, so
yeah, it was a pretty short drive.
Yeah. But no, they were fine. Navy was loading the box at that point in time, and those type of things. But no, I thought they did fine. Ashton Craig should have got called for a hold. Oh, that was another thing. Ashton Craig's got to be Pat Coogan's got to be really careful with a couple of those runs that were to his side, where he was getting his arm a little bit out and not letting go. He might have got called for a couple holds. And if you're playing on the road, I'll tell you this right now, when you're playing at NC State in 2 weeks, they'll call that.
Yeah.
When you're playing Ohio State at home with Big Ten refs, that's getting called.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. So it's just a technical thing that you've got to improve upon. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what they didn't get a great push, Vince, the second team line outside of really Billy. But I thought they did their job. They knew what to do for the most part, and it was a learning opportunity for them. So and that was the pass to Rico was not a design pass. That was an RPO. So that was the fourth RPO of the night. But I didn't have that charted because I didn't chart the last 5 or 6 plays. Because I don't like adding kind of, I'll say garbage time. I think that's a disrespectful term, but I don't like adding when you put the second teamers in the stats because I think it can skew it, to be honest with you. But
Anthony Solomon.
Actually, we already had that one. Sorry.
Well, thanks again, Anthony. Appreciate it.
I'm not even going to have you read that one, but Matt, thanks for the super chat. Appreciate that.
Not sure what that means, but all right.
Yeah, it's because some people don't think you actually had cramps; they think it was something else.
Okay, I see. No, my legs will tell you otherwise.
Because if you go back because now somebody sent me the video, you went like this. You went.
Oh yeah, I was like, oh, that hurts.
It's gonna get memed. It's gonna get memed, Vince. I
love it.
Hate to tell you,
that was painful. All right. Justin Webb, thank you for the super chat. I love that they've already sent you the video, by the way. He says, I work second shift. Thanks for what you guys do, especially on the recruiting side. So a little shout to Ryan on that one.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, Justin. Really appreciate it, man.
Got another super chat here.
Nathan Milton, is there any reconsideration in keeping Vince in the press box? What? He's trying to kick me out.
He keeps talking about this. Like, Vince is going to be in the press box.
Yeah, I'm not missing this game, guys. I'm sorry. I think I speak for all IB Nation that I want him there for the OSU game. VD 21 for life. Oh, he thinks I'm not going to be there. Oh, I'm in there.
Yeah, he's made like several comments about that. And I don't understand why that's being made.
I'll be there. Don't worry.
Yeah, Vince will be in the press box this year.
And
Justin, this was just he did the super chat twice. So I just wanted to thank him for both of them. But
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
man.
so let's get back to the top, Vince, and we got some more questions here. We're not just doing super chats. We got some more questions coming up tonight.
Florida Irishman. I saw a lot of players play, but none of the young linebackers. Did I miss something?
Well, Jalen Sneed played, and Nolan's not there. You didn't see Jaden Osbury, Drake Bowen, and Preston Zinner. And honestly, there were several other freshmen we didn't see because you have to be smart as a coach. And you don't go into Navy thinking you're going to beat them by 39 and get all your backups in. It's nice to do, but you've got Tennessee State coming up next week. And if you're being honest, you never want to say, oh, you looking ahead to the next game. But let's be real, guys. They know what Tennessee State is, and they know what this game is going to look like. And they know that they're going to get a lot of backups and young guys in that game.
Sure.
If you have any intention of redshirting some of these guys, do you really want to burn 2 out of the 4 games you can play in the first 2 weeks?
Right.
You got to think about that. And especially against an option team like that. So just keep making stops, get them out of the game, and you can get those guys in there next week. That's pretty much basically what it means to me. Is that's what I thought. Now I don't know if they played like special teams or anything like that, but I didn't see they weren't on defense, and it wouldn't surprise me if that was the reason why. Because they're going to play next week, and they're probably going to play 2 weeks after that, if we're being honest, when they play Central Michigan. So you blow out Navy, and all of a sudden, if you have any intention of redshirting like Jaden Osbury, or Preston Drake Bowen, or Preston Center, or Micah Bell, or Don Schuler, Ben Minnick, or those guys, Charles Jagus, any of those linemen, you play them against Navy, they're going to have probably 3 games under their belts before you even get to out of September.
Yeah,
and I just don't know if that's necessarily where you want to be. So some people say, well, we're not overlooking teams and all that. I understand all that, but you kind of that's part of what a head coach has to do, man. That's part of the decision making, managing your roster decisions that you have to make.
Jeremy Miller, lack of defensive rotation was noticeable. Do you believe that was triple option related? Do you feel long-term best option to play next to Watts? Go Irish.
So I feel like there's 2 questions here. First one is the lack of a defensive rotation was noticeable. I don't think there was a lack of a rotation. I think there's at linebacker, there was a little bit of a lack of rotation, which makes sense considering who they're playing. But when I look at the defensive line, they played 4 D tackles the whole night. They played 5 DNs in normal minutes. They played Javante Jean-Baptiste, Nana. They played Josh Burnham. They played Junior, and of course Jordan Patelho. They played 3 corners, and they played 3 safeties as part of the rotation. So I think to answer your question, I do think they rotated maybe more than some people are discussing, but I do think, however, the rotation was kind of pared down a little bit on the back end of the defense because you didn't see any nickel. Number one, that's going to keep Thomas Harper and
you're right.
And they also played Clarence Lewis, so they did play 70. So they actually played 4 corners because they played Jaden Mickey and Clarence Lewis also. So that's going to cut down on that a little bit, that rotation. And also to your point, Jeremy, I think this part is accurate. We saw last year what happened when Notre Dame was forced to play a bunch of freshmen on defense against the triple because JD was hurt and there were some other injuries. Right. So Jalen and Junior had to play a lot of linebacker, and that's where a lot of the mistakes came. I point this out, like almost every time they had a big run last year, Junior or Jalen was on the field.
Yeah.
And sometimes both of them. And it doesn't mean they were the only ones responsible. It's just there was a lot of young guys playing in that game on defense last year, and we saw what happened. They gave up big plays. They gave up. They had some mistakes. So I just don't think they wanted to give that up this game. And the veteran guys have a better idea of where to go. Now, of course, your oldest guy on the field gave up 2 huge mistakes, and another 5th-year senior got peeking into the backfield. I mean, so they still had their fair shares of mistakes, but I think it was more, they were more concerned about just the run fits. I mean, like we've said before, one wrong run fit by a linebacker against a triple option, and it's a 30-yard gain minimum.
Right.
And I think it was, so I do think some of it was option related. Long-term best option to play next to Watts. I'm sorry. I'm just getting Ramon rolling moving forward. I mean, I don't think this was necessarily a great Ramon Henderson game. Ramon's not a great open field tackler maybe in the past. I mean, he's not always the most disciplined guy assignment wise, but now that you're past the option, I'm playing Ramon more, and DJ's just more of a rotation guy. I'm going to try to get Antonio Carter ready because we know who DJ Brown is. Like, he is who he is at this point in time. That's just the fact.
Yep.
And that means great kid, great leader, all that good stuff, but just not a guy you're gonna you want to be playing for 50 snaps against Ohio State, in my opinion. That's
right. Here's the thing. The defense against a triple option is going to be different than any defense they play for the rest of the year. So we can't make a whole lot of judgments based on, we can make some, but not a bunch, right? And so I thought Ramon Henderson was the best second safety in camp, at least what we got to see. That's me personally. So I'm hoping that I see number 11 out on the field a little bit more often. we'll see what happens. I think I think he's the best option to play alongside Watts, but I think there's also going to be a bit of a rotation there. Whether we like it or not, I think there's going to be a rotation there. So,
all right, let's get to some more.
Single digit dreams. Guys, thoughts on the safety play?
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about this. I wanted to pull this up as well. Overall, I didn't think they were used. They were more used as a security blanket in the first half. Just limit the big runs. That's kind of the impression I got from how they were used in the first half. I think second half, Xavier was used a little bit more to trigger, and he was pretty effective at it, in my opinion. The other safeties were didn't really do a whole lot, and I didn't think DJ played well at all. So I did not have an issue. So, yeah, Vince, mine is as well.
Okay.
So it's a StreamYard thing.
Yep, I just wanted to double check
because mine did the same thing at the same time. So
okay. Nathan Milton, was it me or did the O-line look more physical than last year?
No, I mean, I don't think it looked more physical than last year, maybe against Navy. Right. But I mean, if you want to talk about, is it more physical than last year? Just pop in the Clemson game from last year, the BC game. I thought what we saw Saturday that I liked is we saw more movement at guard than we saw last year. That was the big thing. And I think that's more personnel related to your point, Nathan, is that's the thing that I noticed. It's not that they were more physical. It's that they have a guard at right guard that's more capable of moving people than Josh Lugg or Jarrett Patterson was. Pat Coogan got more movement than we're used to seeing from Jarrett Patterson last season. Jarrett was more do your job, be a good athlete, that kind of stuff. He wasn't a mover. This is more about that. This is more of they had guys that are physically capable of moving people at this point in time. So that's what I think. So I'll say that being physical doesn't always mean that you're dominant, right? A guy can play as hard as he wants, and it doesn't mean he's going to be able to move the other guy. He's not capable of it. But two guys could, Quentin Nelson could play just as hard as your 250-pound, 6'1" right guard going against the best defensive tackle in the country, and Quentin can take him on and move him. The other guy gets his butt kicked. They're both playing just as hard, just as physical, but one guy's just more capable. Does that make sense? Does that kind of explain it a little bit better?
Yep.
It's just, I think with Rocco Spindler, they had a guy that's just more capable. This is what we always hoped that Rocco could be. You saw his better feet last night. He was moving better. He's just in better shape. His body is completely – remember that big old kind of middle he had last year, Vince? That's gone. He looked great.
Got to give a lot of credit to him.
Really, really good.
He could have been like, I guess this isn't in the cards for me. He could have transferred. He could have done a bunch of different things. But instead, he worked himself back into a viable option and then won the job. And he played really, really well in game one. More games to come, but he played really well. And I was very happy.
Yep. All right, let's get to some more good questions here today, everybody.
Carlos Garza, what are your all's thoughts on the USC game? Did you think the new clock rule can be an advantage for Notre Dame when it's time to play them?
I don't care about the clock rule. I don't. Here's what I think about the clock rule. If a team was going to beat you 38-35, now they're just going to beat you 31-28. I've said this all the time. It's when people would freak out about Navy. Oh, they limit possessions. Okay, so instead of beating them 42-10, you beat them 24-3, right? Like you're still going to win or lose based on how you play that game. So if you limit possessions, it just means that they still beat you because they're better than you. It just means it's a lower scoring game than it otherwise would have been. I don't buy into that whole thing. What I will say is USC looked like they were playing a first game with a bunch of new guys. I thought the O-line kind of moved San Jose State around in the second half. They were better second half, but they just out-talented San Jose State. They were just a lot bigger. I think their defense is still a mess. Schematically, they just don't play sound football. They've got good athletes, but they're just not a disciplined defense. Offensively, they were rusty. They look like a team is supposed to look in week one. That's what I thought about last night, Vince, when I watched that game. they're a talented team that was kind of going through some of the game one. Notre Dame played abnormally sharp for an opener. Like let's be honest about that. Notre Dame was abnormally sharp for a team that you expect in the opener. We saw in a lot of the other games what team Vanderbilt had some just dumb plays last night that allowed Hawaii to hang around. They were a better team than Hawaii. They just made some mistakes. Notre Dame's game was a bit of an anomaly for what you expect in an opener against a decent opponent, right? San Jose State and Navy are very similar. And I mean, Navy was 4-8 with a lot of close losses to good teams. San Jose State was like 6-7 in a weaker conference. I mean, they're very similar. Navy USC struggled to stop the run, did a good job getting pressure on the quarterback. A little sloppy on offense, but they have some really talented players. Had a kick return for a score. So, I mean, they were very talented, and they had a sloppy first game, which I wouldn't say sloppy. That's bad. Rusty.
Yeah.
Right? Just kind of typical first game stuff. Now, if they're doing this in week 3 and 4, then you start to get a little bit worried. But it's honestly, it's what I warned could happen in Notre Dame in the opener. It's why I said my goal was just survive and advance against Navy. Just get out of the first game. You get right next week against Tennessee State and just get the W, right? I didn't really care that Notre Dame came out. And I mean, I'm excited that they won 42-3. I think that's great. But it wasn't like, oh, they better do this or else. And that's kind of how I felt about USC last night. I mean, they were sloppy, but they still went for 501 yards and 7.3 yards of play. And now some of that was a little misleading because they had like a play where he drops the ball and just hurls it down the field and, they get a touchdown. It's like, that's not probably going to work against Notre Dame or Utah.
I'd like to try that against Notre Dame, though.
You know what I mean? Or, there's some Superman stuff that he can do against a team like that. Then there's Superman stuff that only works against San Jose State. You know what I mean? So, no, I thought they looked like you'd expect it. Yeah, I actually didn't pick them to cover. I predicted them to win the game, but not to cover. That doesn't surprise me that they didn't cover. So, yeah, that's one I would have been pretty adamant about because exactly like what we saw last night. They're going to be a little sloppy.
Tyler Evans, I watched the USC game last night, and the USC defense did not look good, and the face of Alex Grinch was priceless.
I didn't notice that. Yeah, I didn't notice. I didn't pay attention to him, but USC, yeah, they did not. No, they did not look good. No, they didn't.
I mean, they gave up 28 points to San Jose State, so
yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not like they gave up like 40 or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, they're not. San Jose State's not an offensive juggernaut. They averaged 27.4 last year. San Jose did have a decent defense last year, though. I will say that. But they did a pretty good job against them, in my opinion. And they're a pretty experienced team, but no, they look like a team playing their first opponent against an okay opponent. And they'll be better next week. I'm trying to forget who USC has. I know they have a week schedule to start the season, but they got Nevada next week. Nevada next week. They have Stanford the week after that. Then they have a bye. Then they're at Arizona State, at Colorado. So, I mean, they should get right these next 2 weeks. If they're still making these mistakes against like Stanford and Arizona State, then you can say, okay, that's a problem. That's a problem. But now they got some athletes, though. That's for sure. They got some athletes, but that's always USC.
Yep. Because they're all in their backyard.
Yep.
John Fox, Vince, just want to say I've been at the first 2 Penn games this year, and your son is a great kicker. Well, thanks, John. He works really hard at it, and he takes a lot of pride in what he does. And so he's a little injured. Don't tell his coach because he still wants to play. So, but thank you, John.
You just told everyone.
I know, but his coach isn't watching. Let's be honest. He's getting ready for Cathedral. Not. He's getting ready for Cathedral.
I hope not. And where's it at? Right. Is it at Cathedral?
Yeah. Yeah. Get to make a trip down to Indy on Friday.
Interesting.
Yep. James Ingalls, mailbag. What type of offense defense does Tennessee State run?
I honestly don't know a lot about Tennessee State. Other structurally, they appear to be a 4-2-5 defense and a spread offense is the best I can tell. There's just not a ton of film out there of them. I mean, a lot of our focus this week, we'll give you a little bit of knowledge about them, but a lot of our focus this week is going to be on Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But spread offense, 4-2-5, pretty mobile quarterback last year. I haven't looked at their depth chart yet, to be completely honest with you. But that's what we'll So we'll see. This is an interesting take right here, Ryan.
Matt says, first of all, thanks for the super chat, Matt. USC reminds me of a Weiss team.
Yeah. Talented, athletic, score,
Yeah.
not good fundamentally, not real physical, not very good on defense. Last night, that's what they look like. But again, I just want to say it's one game, right? It's one game. It's the opener. I would not put a lot into that. And I'd be saying the same thing if they won 80-0 and everybody's freaking out about how good USC looked. I'd be saying the same thing, guys. It's one game. It's one game. I'd have been saying that if Notre Dame would have won a sloppy game over Navy yesterday. Fellas, it's one game.
Yep.
Ladies, it's one game. And I'll say the same thing about Notre Dame's convincing victory, Vince. I mean, they looked great yesterday.
Yeah.
But no one's handing Notre Dame the national championship trophy because of how bad they beat Navy, right? They've got to go out and prove it now week after week after week. And it was a great foundational game. There's a lot of teams in the country that could wish in game one they could play sloppy, rusty football and win 56-28. There's a lot of teams that wish they could do that, right? And so now for USC, they just got to show if they can kind of not be that way all year, because the problem with Charlie's teams is what they were in week one is just kind of what they were the whole year.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they were just fundamentally unsound. They just weren't real physical. They just weren't a well-coached football team. That's just who they always are. I've seen teams look like you-know-what in the opener. I mean, as good as Notre Dame looked against Navy in 2012, they looked equally as bad the next week against Purdue.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so, okay, who were they? Well, they were kind of in between those two teams. You know what I mean? And so that's why you never overreact too much or too little to one opponent. I mean, because we don't know what some of these teams are. I remember, what was it? Was it 2016 or 2017? I'm trying to remember the year that Alabama beat Florida State in the opener. And I think it might have been 2016. What year was that? Give me a second. I'm going to find this. Is it 2017? Yeah, 2017. You know, Alabama comes out and beats Florida State in the opener, and you're thinking, man, that was a great win. I think Florida State was like a preseason top 10 team. You know, what a great win. And Florida State ends up going 7-6 that year. They lost the next week to NC State, lost 2 weeks after that to Miami, lost to Louisville at home, got spanked by Boston College by 32. They weren't a very good team. Yeah. We really don't know what these teams are. You don't really know let's say San Jose State's actually going to be really good this year in the Mountain West. And you're going to look back on this game at the end of the year and be like, beating them that way, that's pretty impressive to be able to beat them that way. I don't know the answer to that, right? But I do know this. They have athletes on both sides of the ball. But if they're going to be the team people think they're going to be, they got a lot to clean up.
Yep.
A lot to clean up. No doubt about it.
Another super chat from Tom Frawley. Brian and Vince, kudos to your preseason reporting on this team. Pretty much everything you said showed up in yesterday's game. Great job, fellas.
Well, now they just got to do it week after week, right? Because if they don't show this team, if they're not this team the next 11 games, no one's going to be like, hey, you guys were right about this team. Remember how they played in that one game? That's kind of what I liked about this team, is the things we did see Vince did translate.
Sure.
Because you and I have been at practices in past years where it's like, I'm not really sure how this part of this team is going to be. And then you realize, well, they're actually better than I thought. And then there's been other years where you're like, hey, I think this part of the team is going to be pretty good. And then they get out to the season and you're like, wow, they're not nearly as good as I thought they were going to be.
Yeah.
And so you don't really know. But yeah, I was happy to see the fire that they played with last night. I mean, there's going to be stuff to clean up, right? It's like when we rewatched the defense, there was more mistakes on the defense than I thought there was going to be. Or at least that I thought, lie.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's the thing about rewatching the game, is that you can only watch so much when you're watching it live, and then you have to go back and you got to check it out. And that is what we always do. That's why this show kind of came about in the first place, because we love doing the post-game show, and we love, breaking it down as best we can live and giving you guys what we see. But then we always go back, and because we're coaches, and that's what coaches do. That's why it is very cliche for a coach to be like, well, I got to watch the film before I, kind of comment on this. It's true, because especially when you're on the sideline, like, you can only see so much, and that's how it is for us too. So that's why this show is fun, to be honest.
I really hate how touchy these microphones are. Like, I barely touched the cord and it popped out, and just we're in the process of looking for new mics. I'll just say that we're
mine doesn't even
very
turn
much
on.
in the process of looking for new one. That's why I was like, good save, Vince, because I was like, dude, because you know what happens when it pops out, it does all the crazy noises, and then so I was like, you know. But hey, we're getting through, man. Handles adversity like a champion tonight. You know what I mean?
That's what we do. We got cramping. We got mics going out.
Yeah.
It's just, Yeah.
So anyway.
From Matt, thank you so much for, I believe, another super chat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I feel the depth of Notre Dame is better than it's been in a while. Under every coach since Holtz, we haven't had that depth. I think this team could be special.
Man, I think that's a great observation. I think that's a big difference between this team is the depth of talent. That's a big part of it, is the depth of talent. Now they've got to put it all together, right? And that's kind of was our big question is, there's no doubt this is the deepest team I've seen of Notre Dame of depth of talent. But some of the depth is young, some of the depth is still learning, some of the depth is, in what we saw, like it's a little easier for a really talented freshman receiver, in my opinion, to come in and ready to play if you're coaching the team right, than it is for a freshman linebacker to come in and play, for example. So does this mean Jaden Greathouse is better than Drake Bowen? Not necessarily. It just means the opportunity was there more, and it's a position that doesn't require as much of a transition. But I also think that some of these young guys they did get, like Jaden Greathouse and Rico Flores, are far more advanced than we've seen from freshmen in the past, physically, mentally, emotionally, schematically, experientially. I mean, Jaden Greathouse and Rico Flores were incredibly productive high school receivers. They've played a lot of football, and it showed. And they're very talented kids. And look, props to Chad Bowden and the recruiting staff and Marcus Freeman, because you're starting to see the difference in talent this year because there are so many freshmen and sophomores that were Marcus Freeman, Chad Bowden recruits on the field.
Right.
And so you're looking at Jaden Greathouse and Tobias and Rico and Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price and Jabron Payne and all those kind of guys and Benjamin Morrison and Josh Burnham and those talented players and you're saying, hey, these guys are pretty good.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the recruiting pay off. And that's a big part of it.
There's no doubt about it. I'm still laughing at the text you got last night. So it just cracks me up.
Which one was that?
Well, I can't really say who it was from.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But
I got you.
The story made me laugh.
No, we're good. Yep. Yeah. Sorry. Like I said, the mic went out, so I apologize. It's all good.
Yeah, but thanks for the super chat. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Let manager
one. Appreciate that.
Woo. JHT 1988. Good year. Was Cam caught peeking, or is he too amped to make a big play, and that's why he got burned?
I think he got caught peeking. Got kind of called, and that's the same thing that happened to him last year.
Flat-footed. He was caught a little flat-footed because he was peeking in the backfield. Yeah, I noticed that as well.
Yep. And that happened to him again last year, but fortunately, but see, here's the thing. This is something that I liked though, Vince. Last year, I said it last night, I'll repeat it again. Last year, when a guy would make a mistake, there was nobody to pick him up and it would just be a big play. We saw 2 times DBs made big mistakes. Cam peeking and DJ Brown falling down.
Yeah.
What happened? Somebody else stepped up, made a play to prevented the quarterback from making the necessary throw that he needed to make. That's what good teams do. We're like, hey, you messed up on this one, but I got you, right? Because there's going to be one of these days where I'm going to mess up. I need you to get me, right? Cam Hart's not going to be the only talented cornerback to get caught peeking in the backfield a couple times this season, right? But somebody's got to pick you up, and that's what we saw last night that we didn't see last year. So that was a great sign. Great sign.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Matt, another super chat. Thank you so much. I'm thinking week 8 on when injury depletes the offense. I don't like that word. We finally have cats that can sub in and matter. I love the concept of your comment. I just hope the word deplete doesn't actually happen.
No, he's thinking about week 8 when injury deplete, like like in the past when it's happened. I'm thinking week 8 on when injury depletes the offense. We finally have cats that can sub in and matter. I think is what he's saying is you're going to lose guys, right? And it tends to happen as you get later in the year. And finally, Notre Dame is in position to where if that happens, it's not devastating because they're going to lose somebody. And you just don't see a team go through an entire season and not lose somebody.
Sure.
Right. And now Notre Dame's in a little bit better position to say, you got to be careful who that somebody is. but they're in a position to say, hey, we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right.
I was quickly trying to look up the schedule for next week, but Tyler Evans, thank you for the super chat, says, any games next week that you're excited to watch or can't wait to play out? I know Florida State LSU.
There are some
and I'm
great
very
games
excited
next
about
week.
that game.
Yes. That's on Sunday, right? So the games I'm excited to watch actually begin on Friday, Vince, or Thursday, excuse me.
Thursday.
Florida, Utah's Thursday night.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing that game. Really want to see what they do. And another Thursday night game that I'm very curious to see, Vince, is Nebraska and Minnesota. I really want to see what Matt Rule's team looks like. I do.
Okay.
Friday night, Louisville, Georgia Tech, 2 teams with new coaches. Obviously, Notre Dame plays one of those teams. I'm looking forward to seeing that one. Colorado, TCU, just because I want to see, the hype about them is going to be crazy. I just want to kind of see what that looks like. Boise State, Washington. We're going to get our first glimpse to see kind of how Washington is. That's going to be. Hey, did you see UMass? By the way, speaking of last night, did you see UMass got an impressive victory last night? Did you see that? Yeah, they beat New Mexico State 41-30. It was 13-10 going into the fourth quarter. UMass outscored New Mexico State 28-20 in the fourth quarter alone. Man. So there's a lot of fourth quarter scoring last night, man, in that game.
31-20 in the second half, I'm seeing as I look that up.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, a lot of scoring in the second half. Couple other games. Obviously, Vince, we talked about Sunday is the game. West Virginia, Penn State. Here's a game I'm looking forward to watching. Is North Carolina, South Carolina. That's going to be a really interesting game because those are 2 sleeper teams in those conferences. That's going to be interesting. And then Monday, Clemson at Duke. That's another one on Monday night, Clemson at Duke. I'm looking forward to watching that one away. So there's a lot of great games this weekend.
There are a lot of great
games this weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll be watching a lot of football this weekend, everybody. Like, Brian, why didn't you get those breakdowns done this week? I'm sorry, I got distracted.
I mean, there may be an iPad sitting right here while we're doing upon further review next week. Because
it's actually kind of interesting. We kind of had a question about that, Vince, from John Keevers. So speaking of what you just said, this is a perfect time to bring up John's question.
Yes, it is. It says, fun question, Brian. What does your setup look like? How many computer screens are in front of you and where are they positioned?
So when I'm watching games from home, and obviously last night, since I wasn't in Ireland, I was watching the game at home. I have three different devices up and a fourth if I need it. So sometimes I'll have more, but since there was no other games on last night, so I have my laptop. So I was upstairs watching it. I have my laptop that has like the message board, and it's got the stats, and it's got my play-by-play. And I have a notepad in front of me that I take notes of each play, what I see, questions I need to go back and look at in between the series. Then I had a monitor hooked up to my iPad over here that had the game on. That's always like 2 plays behind or a play behind. And so I had the TV on in the living room watching the TV. And so that was my setup for the game. Now, when Notre Dame's not playing, Vince, I have a lot more devices set up.
Right.
I've got my iPad, both my iPads, my work iPad and my personal iPad, got those set up. Got the TV with a game, the side monitor with a game, or the laptop with a game, the monitor with a game, and then the TV with a game. So sometimes I'll have like 4 or 5 games going at once. If I'm just watching games, like if it's like during Notre Dame's bye week, my setup is sweet. Sweet. Yes. I told Angela, I said, hey, I want to actually take the TV we have downstairs and set that up in my office, and then take the TV we have upstairs and set that up down in the basement, and then buy a new TV for upstairs. I was like, yes, I had it all planned out. She just looks at me like, it's like, okay, never mind.
Like most wives when you want to get a big TV. Yeah.
Guess not.
Yeah.
I was just playing. I just want to test you, see what you're thinking.
See the look on your face.
So that conversation wasn't very long.
I've had many of those.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's get back to it.
Matt, no hate or worry yet on Tobias, but did he look off or uninspired, or is this just his personality?
He is not a rah-rah emotional guy. Mm-hmm. He is a very calm kid. So no, he did not look off or uninspired at all. That's his demeanor.
No, I thought
that's how he plays.
Well, blocked
his butt off in the game.
Yeah, that's why.
And all guys, listen. If Sam Hartman makes a better throw to Tobias,
Touchdown.
it's a touchdown.
And
Now, the
we're all having
drop,
a different
that's on
conversation.
him. That's
For
on him.
sure.
The drop's on him. He was
And he'll be
open
the first
on
one to say
multiple
it.
other snaps. He was open in the game. He's like somebody says, got to make a player better playing the ball. Okay, I understand that. But again, go back and watch the play. And if he goes up for the ball, there's no way he gets his foot down. None.
Right.
I think he showed good field awareness on that particular play. I just want to see him. My whole thing is, as he gets older and is more experienced, he'll understand I can't get to this ball. And so my best bet is to draw the pass. So, like, he got interfered with, but there's things that a veteran receiver will do that he knows I'm not catching this ball, so I need to draw a pass interference.
Right.
And as Tobias gets older and gets more experience, so, maybe later in the year, next year, senior year, he'll know this ball's way late. I got to jump up and let the guy run through me and over dramatic and like flail my arms. And that's what veteran receivers do. Well, guess what, guys? He's not a veteran receiver yet. That's going to come. But if Sam does a better job, and Sam knows it, because go look at how Sam reacted after the play.
Yeah.
Pissed at himself. It's like, But no, I mean, go watch. I'll tell you what. Go watch the run plays when Tobias is in the game, and you tell me he was uninspired.
Yeah.
Right? Did he play well? Not in that one situation, but he got himself open in some others, and he blocked very well. We just tend to react to the one or two plays that we saw, and then not focus on the other ones that we see.
Right. Jeff Stork, has any freshman receiver scored 2 touchdowns in his first game before?
Ooh. So J.P. Buellsfeld said that Derek Mays did that in 1992.
Okay.
In his first game, I think is what he said. I don't know about anybody else. So, but that's what JP texted me today. I couldn't tell you if I couldn't tell you this. Like, I know Michael Floyd caught a touchdown in his first career catch, but he only caught like one pass that game. Remember that against San Diego State? So, yeah, I don't know.
Where's Lou when you need him?
I know.
He'd have known this. He'd have known this.
Yeah, I'm actually I just pulled up the thing that allows me to go look at the box score for the 92 game. So I'm actually going to try to see that, because I do believe Derek Mays was a freshman in 1992. Like, I know Golden Tate didn't catch 2 touchdowns his first game. I mean, Will Fuller didn't. Michael Floyd didn't. Samardzija didn't. Stovall didn't. I mean, no one that I can think of did as a freshman. Michael Mayer didn't. So I don't know anyone that did. I'm sure there's somebody at Notre Dame could kind of point that out, but I'm going to look and see the box score here. It's actually 1992. I'm waiting to see this. Give me 1 second. I'm about to be at that page. So let's go to the Notre Dame Northwestern game box score. It looks like Derek Mays. Yeah, he doesn't. They don't have him down here for 2 touchdowns in this game. So yeah. Or what year was Derek Mays a freshman?
No.
Let me go look this up real quick.
Well, and is it the first game that he played in, or the first game of the season?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find out. Yeah. So I'm going to see because it definitely, we'll see. I'll keep going through it, man. But I don't see Derek getting any catches anyway in that game. So, but yeah, I don't know when his first game was, but that's just what somebody told me last night. I don't know of anybody else that's done that. So it looks like he scored twice in this game. This would have been who against Purdue? No, that was the week before. Okay, so it looks like Derek Mays' first touchdown came, I think it's Michigan State. Only caught 1 in that game. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm just telling you what I was told, but I don't know who that would have been. I don't know that anybody's done that, to be honest with you. None of the big-time guys that I know of have done that. I like this name. This is hilarious.
All right. I was still looking. I was trying to help you look stuff up. All right. It's a good day because I'm not BK. That's great. At the end of the season, which receiver do you guys think will have the most receptions?
I'd say probably Jaden Thomas.
We've talked.
My answer hasn't changed because of one game.
No.
I mean,
no.
Yeah.
No.
Still Jaden Thomas. Somebody asked this question. Eric Santini says, Brian, don't you think if he would have caught the ball, he would have been tackled for a loss? So smart it wasn't. Wasn't it smart not to catch? If you could tell me, if you could convince me that he dropped it on purpose, maybe, but I'm not convinced that he dropped it on purpose. Yeah. I mean, to me, there's no evidence that he dropped it on purpose.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you that it was smart. I mean, look, I think there's a time and a place to say that that's smart. I would say this: I would never tell a receiver to drop a bubble screen, because it's that type of route where it's always going to be a little bit close to being a backwards pass, and it just takes one bad official or one bad officiating crew to get that wrong, and you just had a turnover. So bubble screen is not a play where, like, there's throw a check down, you're like, hey man, when he's throwing you a check down because he's falling down and you're 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage, bat that sucker down. You know what I mean? Like, you'll teach that to guys, but that to me was not one of those instances where you could convince me that he meant to drop that. I'm not saying that he maybe shouldn't have. I'm just saying I don't think that he did. I'm trying to actually find that play right now that he
it was early, wasn't it? It was the first drive.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was a 1st and 10 play. So, but yeah, we'll find it here. It was not that play. But I'll go ahead and look it up, Vince, as we're moving on to other questions. Okay. Yeah, I just think he did that on purpose.
Brian Berkshire, did you guys notice that during the timeout before the Thomas touchdown, Sam and Jaden were actually discussing the route he then ran for the touchdown?
I did not see that.
Nope.
But if that happened, I'd say that's a very astute. Huh?
How do you know that that's the route he was talking about?
I would imagine that just there's pointing going on, something along those lines. I didn't see it, so I can't really comment on it. But
fair enough.
Yeah, let me go look this up. I'm at that play now, so I'm just looking at it here real quick to see if he there might have been an indication he did this on purpose here real quick. So just give me a second. So they're throwing the bubble screen now. Yeah, I'm not a giving it. I mean, that was bad blocking by Jaden Thomas on that play. That was one of the two I had him marked down on. I don't know that it would have been a loss, but there's nothing on that play that makes me think Tobias did that on purpose.
Yeah.
So, and I'm a Tobias fan, so yeah, he doesn't know that he's about to get tackled for a loss. He's got his school. Yeah, it wasn't a great throw, but it was very catchable. It should have been caught. Yeah, no doubt.
Johnny S. ASU self-imposed bowl ban is like me refusing to date a supermodel.
I think their self-imposed bowl ban just pisses me off about Arizona State. It pisses me off about the NCAA. The fact that you're doing bowl bans, to me, I think are the stupidest thing ever. Because the reality is the money they would have to pay to not take a bowl ban is greater than what they would make by playing in whatever bowl game they're going to play in this year. Because they know they're not going to be a great team this year. So if they make a bowl game, it's going to be like the Sun Bowl or some bowl. They're not making a lot of money. They watched Tennessee pay $8 million to not have to get a bowl ban, and they basically said, "We don't want to pay that. We'll just take the loss for the bowl game." And so I think it's crap. I think it's once again a school in the NCAA, because the NCAA shouldn't even be an option. You can't put yourself on a bowl ban, because we only make that decision. And you're punishing the current staff and current group of players for things done by people that are no longer there. And I think that's just one of the dumbest things ever.
Yep.
It's like if I hired, you to do a job that I fired somebody else to do, and then I'm taking it out on you that it was done poorly. And you're like, dude, what the freaking heck is wrong with you, man? Like, I didn't do this wrong. That's how stupid this is. And for the school to deprive the kids of that opportunity. Now, they may not qualify for a bowl game anyway. But now you're going to look back and say, well, were the kids really inspired? Who knows? But I just thought I hate it. It'd be one thing if like Herm Edwards was still the coach. Yeah, you got to punish them because you chose not to. I think those type of things should never be about like the whole taking games away and bowl games. What they should do is penalties like that should all be financial, and they should all be severe.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gets people to stop. But the NCAA is going the opposite direction. They're going to start lessening penalties, in my opinion, because they just don't want to have to deal with the lawsuits because they're a bunch of freaking cowards. So that's my stance. I'm not going to get into a rant tonight, though, because I just don't want to.
Did you want to not do that question that you just had up?
What did I have up? What was it?
It was from Cal.
I missed it.
I didn't even have a
I
chance
missed
to
it.
read it. It's okay.
Yeah,
All right.
let me go try and find it. So we'll go to this one from Scott, and I'll go
Okay.
back up and try to find it. I thought it was the one that we had up from before. I'm sorry, Cal. I'll go try and find it.
Scott L. With the transfer portal and schools recruiting players to leave their teams, how much should Notre Dame preserve eligibility for any players? You can't think like that. Like
Right.
that's you can't think about what's going to happen in the future and if guys are going to leave. You have to think about what's best for your team right now. Yes, you're
Yeah.
looking into the future on some of these guys, but you're looking at it from the scope of
Yeah.
your team, not
And you know which guys are going to be upset and which guys are not,
right.
and I found Cal's question. That's what it comes down to. Your job this weekend was to get ready to play and beat Navy,
Yes.
and then get your team ready to play the rest of the year. If you have a guy that's going to transfer after because you didn't play in the first couple games, he was eventually going to leave when something didn't go his way
Right.
anyway.
Yeah. You can't think like that.
Jaden Osbury knows guys well enough to know like they're not going to be in their feelings because they didn't play in the first game, and they you probably had those you would hope you had those conversations with them.
Yeah.
To let them know kind of where they stood on that in that regard. So I would hope. I mean, look, there are you got to make some of those decisions sometimes.
Sure.
You have to make decisions of, hey, we got to play this guy because if we don't play this guy, he's going to leave, and this guy can help us. And so, maybe we expedite that process a little bit, right? And so I'm okay with that to a degree. I just don't want to see it to where it's like you're playing a guy who's not ready just because, he does, you think he's going to leave. That's where I'm not a fan of that, to be honest with you, Vince. That's when I get a little bit like, nah, that's dumb.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I understand you're coming out. I think Vince, you nailed it. It's just, you got to make decisions on what's best for you to win football games.
Correct. Yep. Xavier Kilowatts. I like that. Is it more significant or less that Maris played well against Navy? His weakness in the past, does trip option stress it more or less?
Ryan talked about this before the game, and he said this is not the kind of game this is not a Maris Louisville type of game. Normally, it's structured, it's disciplined, it's playing within the system and all that kind of stuff, and that's normally not a Maris type of deal.
Right.
And so the fact that he did play well in that circumstance is a good sign, I think, in his view. And I agree with him. That was the point of what he was trying to say. So I actually think it was a good thing that he played that way and performed the way that he did against this particular opponent. I absolutely think it's a good thing.
It's an absolute step in the right direction because it shows he's disciplined, but he can still play, fast and athletically and all of those different things. So yeah, I think it's definitely a good thing.
He played disciplined. That's the big thing. And the triple option to hit to the point that Cal's asking here is or Xavier's asking here is that's when Maris has not played well, is when he's got to play disciplined football.
Right.
And last night he did. He did play disciplined football last night. And that's what the great question was. And so good one. Let's get to we got the last couple here, I think. And this is Cal's question.
Cal, do you think the interior line needs to prove more because Navy's blitzes were from the outside? There was plenty from the inside as well.
Well, I mean, first of all, most teams don't blitz like that, right? And so picking up blitzes is not a problem from a physical standpoint. It's a problem from a the system standpoint. And I think the thing that impressed me last night is they played sound football. But here's the other part is outside blitzes require inside guys to still have to make decisions they wouldn't normally make against normal pass pro. So, hey, if I got to fan out, because normally if I'm lined up and I'm a guard and I'm uncovered and the tackle's got a guy on him and I've got an inside backer and an outside backer, in certain calls, I got to know that if the left tackle makes a call, he's fanning out to pick up the blitzer. I got to fan out and take the guy over top of him, and the back's got to pick up the inside blitzing linebacker. So that outside pressure is affecting me because I've got to now work outside and help out here. Or if this guy doesn't come on the inside, I got to now be the guy to work out outside. You'll see that too, where I'll get in pass pro, and I'm kind of blocking these two to these two. If the inside guy comes, I got to take him. It's almost like what you do with a running back. But if he doesn't come and I've got nobody to block, I'm looking outside for work, right? And so it stresses you. Outside pressure stress you as a guard as well. It's just not in as direct of a manner as you might see from inside blitzers. But the other big thing for me is I liked what they did in the run game. I mean, that was the big thing for me, the physicality they showed in the run game.
Yep.
But here's the deal. Every member of the team has something to prove after game one. It's one game. I mean, we have seen Sam Hartman have some brilliant games in his career. And then the next week throw 4 picks. I mean, he still has stuff to prove as well. Jaden Greathouse has stuff to prove. Audric Estime has stuff to prove. Everybody has something to prove. It's one game. There's a very impressive game. But everybody has something to prove. And the guards played great on Saturday. But the key, Cal, is they've got to now play well week after week after week after week. Not great one week and not good the next week. But to your point, your question, I don't think that it was necessarily, they weren't stressed because the pressures from outside. There were still also pressures inside as well. They're not a outside only pressure team. There were plenty of inside triggers. And I thought for the most part, they handled those well. They weren't perfect, but I thought they handled it pretty well. So I think we learned a lot from it. Every week presents a different challenge for you. And that's going to be the thing, is every week is going to give you a little bit of a different look that you've got to step up and meet it. And that's what the good teams do. The good teams step up and meet those unique challenges week after week after week. Yeah. Are these guards good enough to do that? Don't know. All I know is they played really well yesterday. And then hopefully they do that again next week, and then they string some together. And that's when we'll have a better idea, Cal, if they're legit or not. But right now, they are batting 1,000. They needed to play really well in one game, and they played really well in one game. Now let's see what they do against Tennessee State and move them forward. But I think it's a fair question, Vince. It's a very fair question.
Oh, for sure.
I think there's still a lot to prove, even if you're not necessarily always being blitzed right at you.
Right.
In my view. So, yeah, good question. So I think that, Vince, I believe that is the last question that I have targeted. Okay. So let's get down. So I think that's it. So yeah, let's rock and roll. Let's get us out of here.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us on Chapter 1, the first edition of Upon Further Review. It was a fun review because Notre Dame won, frankly. And hopefully you have more of those coming up. But stay tuned, man. We got a big week planned. Obviously, the opponent that Notre Dame is going to play, Tennessee State, maybe is not the most exciting, but that does not mean we aren't going to bring the business to you. So make sure you tune in. Recruiting hour tomorrow in the afternoon. I know Ryan's going to have some good stuff about some guys and what they did in their first couple of weeks in high school ball.
I'm actually getting ready to publish that. The article he did on that right now. He did an article on it, but yeah, he'll talk about that in the show tomorrow.
Yep. He's going to talk about that
big
tomorrow.
Weekend for some dudes. Speaking of pass catchers, Ryan or Vince, just want to throw this out there.
I know
so talk about how good Notre Dame's freshman receivers are. Here's the numbers for Notre Dame's 2024 receivers. Cam Hartman had 5 touchdowns, 3 receiving, and he had 2 kick returns. And Micah Gilbert had 7 catches for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns. Logan Saldate had 6 catches for 171 yards this past weekend as well. So yeah, it was a pretty good week for the Notre Dame receivers all around, young receivers all around, present, and future. So yeah,
not too bad. Not too bad.
Pretty good day.
Yeah. So make sure you guys check out the big show in the afternoon. Make sure you check out IB Nation Sports Talk at 6:00 Monday through Thursday, and then of course can't forget Mailbag Friday. Mailbag Friday, folks. They're all good days. So make sure you subscribe, you give us a 5-star review. All of those fun things. And then make sure you get on the boards because there's a lot of stuff Brian's putting out this year that hasn't been done in the past. A lot of breakdowns, some numbers, you like to crunch those numbers. You want to get in there and get on the boards, folks. There's going to be some good stuff. There's also going to be some film breakdown, I do believe, on the board as well.
That'll come a little bit later in the week.
Yep.
But yes. Yeah. But it'll be the statistical stuff will kind of come out in waves over the course of a couple days. And just going to be some of that. So like we'll get it out starting Sunday all the way through Tuesday as and just kind of do it as it comes, right? So, get the pass game stuff broken down first, and then I'll move on to, the run game stuff and just kind of keep going from that regard. So that's how it's going to go.
Love it.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And then the film part will come last. The film breakdown will come last. So
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Irish Breakdown's your place to get it. So make sure you guys stick around. Week 1 is in the books officially with our Upon Further review. And so 1-0. Got to be 1-0 every week. So here we go. Week 2 coming up. So for Brian, I'm Vince, and we will talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown podcast.
1 p.m. all week. Somebody asked. 1 p.m. all week.
There we go. 1 p.m. all week. And then, of course, don't forget, folks, post-game, pre-game, and then Upon Further review every Sunday at 8 o'clock. So lots of fun. Lots of fun. We're coming at you 7 days a week, folks. All right. Coming at you strong. So for Brian, I'm Vince. We'll talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown podcast.